Hey guys, this is day 19, and so we've gone through your 5 pockets. We've gone through the physical, we've gone through the psychological, we've gone through the personal, went through the papers, and then we completed with the phone. But now that we've got this great backpack with all these wonderful supplies, the next question is how do we maintain this thing year after year after year? Well, this one is going to be pretty easy today. What I want you to do is once a year, one day out of the year, and make it the same day every year. So make it the, first Saturday in June or whatever. You can set it on your electronic calendar by saying, we're just going to do it, the first week in April, the first Saturday in April. Always make it the same time. Make that the day when you empty the backpack out entirely. I want you to take everything out of it. Every single thing out of it, period, and evaluate it all. Turn everything on. Try everything. You don't have to eat the disaster food because the disaster food should last you for a really long time. You don't have to drink the water, although I generally like to do it because then I get a fresh one and every year, and they don't cost that much. The water packets don't cost much, but you should definitely try the flashlights every year. You should test everything. You should make sure everything works, make sure the batteries are still good, check the first aid kit. It doesn't take that long, maybe an hour or so, but pull everything out of the backpack, make sure everything is there that you needed to. Go through the 5 pockets. You don't feel like you have to, try to figure it out on your own. And I'll actually create a checklist and put it on my blog site, and I'll put it on Instagram so you guys can download it. There should be a link in the description where you can actually download a basic list and some idea of what you're going to need in a disaster in that backpack for the 5 pockets, so you can just do your checklist on your own. But I want you to go through everything and check it. For example, what if you decide to change your evacuation location? So let's say it used to be your parents' house, but your parents sold that house, they moved somewhere else. Okay, so now you need to get rid of the old key, the old security code. You need to get the new key, the new security code. And then the map has to change, right? You're going to change out where you had circled the X. You're going to have to circle somewhere else, wherever, right? So these things are going to be impacted. You also need to check and make sure that things are still working. So making sure that things are charged up, make sure that the cell phone charger is charged up, make sure the chargers work. If you've changed your phone, make sure the chargers fit your phone. They do change from time to time. Thankfully, not often anymore. They used to change much more often. They were harder to keep up. So I have a bunch of old chargers from old phones that I don't have to worry about anymore. Also, if you've changed from like an Apple to an Android or the other way around, you will need different kinds of chargers based on your needs, right? So the other thing is go in there and check and make sure that the first aid kit is in there. Make sure that you're replacing all the bandages. If there's OTCs in there like Tylenol, one of the things I recommend should be in there. Make sure they're still good. If they're not, toss them and just throw a couple of Tylenol in a bag and stick it in there if you need to. And if it's not, just toss it out and get new ones. Okay, so whatever you have to do to make sure that that kit is maintained entirely. One of the problems that I continually see though is that people don't touch these backpacks for months or years, and then all kinds of things happen. I tell this story in my book about how I was doing a disaster plan for a church, and they actually kept the disaster kits for a lot of their volunteers and their families. And in one of the disaster backpacks, I opened it up, and there was a black widow spider that was literally in there. There was a web, and there was a black widow spider that had slipped in. They hadn't closed the backpack all the way, and it had gone in there, and there were dead insects in there. And if I had stuck my hand in there, I would have gotten bit. So there's no point in doing those kinds of risks. So every year you open it, you check it. Also check to make sure nothing's leaked. Sometimes batteries, we know how this happens. It gets that little, white stuff on there. That's what happens when the battery starts to, that's how we know. That's obviously that's battery acid discharge. So those batteries are gone. You need to toss them and get new ones. Also, if you've been in a disaster and you've actually used supplies, you need to go through the backpack right away. If you have a disaster, immediately afterward, open it up, see what's been used up and replace it, so that you have everything in there, especially if you used up a lot of supplies or the disaster lasted a long time. One of the things that happens also is if you have a long-term disaster, sometimes people say, well, should I keep refilling the disaster backpack in the disaster? Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. So if you're in the disaster and the disaster is lasting weeks or months, then obviously continue replenishing the supply so that no matter what, that baseline is there. We know exactly what we need so that we are in a position where no matter what the disaster is, even if it's ongoing, always have this as a universal backup. That is how you keep this backpack maintained. Should you put it on your back? Yep. Should it be filled? So once you refill it, put it back on your back. Make sure that it's physically not too much for you. Make sure that you can walk around with it. Make sure that everything works so that when there's a disaster, when you need it most, it is available to you. Simple. This is Disaster Patrick, and remember, prepare for a disaster, and you'll never experience one.